Hey, love. Love you. Hey, everybody. My mic audio should be picking me up. Okay, cool. We're going to chill today, hang out. It might pick. Not you. Sure I'm sized correctly. Cool. Back. We're going to mess around with a little theory crafting today and hang out with chat and work on some list building. So I play Eldar. I'm going to start with some Eldar lists. I'm going to be playing at Buckeye battles here in a bit, and I want to have a list for Buckeye battles for my Eldar that is going to do well, but also not be kind of like perceived as that guy right off the bat. See, I've already that's everything. No, I know, just don't touch it. Okay. So we'll work with kind of the basic Eldar build, which is going to be Craft World Air Detachment, Craft World Battalion. That is kind of the bread and butter of the Eldar base kind of mix, because Eldar planes are super strong. Start with Battleford. Italian, this is the... Got it, so Craft World attribute. A couple of them, the one that screams out to me right off the bat is Alatok. It's the planes already have a built-in -1. The Alatok subtract an additional 1 from hit rolls, target units that are more than 12 inches away. And with the mobility of your planes, it's pretty easy to stay 12 inches away. Try that with Alatok. So your planes in this list will probably be -2 to hit from shooting at all times. A lot of things that are anti-plane are going to ignore one of the -1s anyway, but if you're taking a like Tau list that they're all BS4 plus, you're going to make it 5. They're missing an additional 1/6 that are shots, which is invaluable. Look at kind of what we have the options for getting for. Look in our planes. We have the Crimson Hunter. We've got the Crimson Hunter Exarch, the Hemlock Wraith Fighter, a Nightwing and Phoenix are Forge World options. We'll look at the Crimson Hunter first and compare it against the Crimson Hunter Exarch. So the Crimson Hunter has Airborne, 2 Bright Lances, Crash and Burn, which is its crash. When it's reduced to 0 wounds, it essentially explodes. Airborne is the -1 to hit. Let's see if I can get up. Oh, the -1 to hit, it can't hold objectives. Or the hard to hit's -1 to hit. The Pulse Laser. Come up with some Pulse. 48-inch heavy 2. Strength 8, which is good. Strength 8 is pretty much gonna wound anything that your opponent has on 4s or better. AP -3 on that weapon, so 2 up saves go up to a 5 up save, 3 damage. That weapon's definitely gonna be your vehicle hunter. So you got the Crimson Hunter as an option is gonna take 2 Bright Lance shots, which are essentially like laser cannons, strength 8, AP -4, D6 damage at heavy 1, 36-inch range. And then 2, because it's heavy 2, strength 8, -3, 3 damage shots from the Pulse Laser. So that's 4 strength 8 shots at minimum 36-inch range. With a 3 up to hit, you're going to hit 3 of those 4 shots. And then if it's against, because it's anti-vehicle weaponry, if it's against a vehicle, you're wounding on 4s, worst case scenario. So you'll wound 2 or 1.5, and your average damage is 3. So you'll be, in a turn with a Crimson Hunter, you're going to be putting out 3 to 6 wounds onto a vehicle. You could also, with the Sky Hunter rule, reroll failed wound rolls for this model with its ranged weapons against units that can fly, which means it's going to do awesome against other flyers and any of those skimmer vehicles. If you're going to play against Tau in your meta, if you're going to play against other Eldar, Dark Eldar in your meta, any Tyrannid flyers, anything with wings, or like if you're in Space Marine meta with the new Primaris floating tanks, they technically still have fly. It doesn't say that it gets the reroll failed wounds against flyers, which is the category. It's basically anything with the fly keyword. This is a good benefit to have as an anti-fly or anti-skimmer vehicle. You're essentially putting out 4 strength 8 shots at -3 or -4, a mixture, and if you're actually shooting something with fly, re-rolling the wounds, which will push you up to averaging 3 successful wound rolls. It's okay. That's 6 damage on average, 7-8 if you're shooting against the flyer or something with fly. So the issue though is that in a competitive setting, you really want to dominate turn 1. If you could dominate turn 1, then the rest of the game becomes holding on to your lead instead of trying to catch up. So that it's hard if you're only putting average of 6 damage on something to consider that paid for. You're going to have to pay for 168 points in 6 damage, which 6 damage against a repulsor is okay, but let's move on. So this has got 6 damage coming out of that against its vehicle. With fly, it could do a little. If it's against something with fly, it could do a little better. I think the benefit that this has is that it's extremely maneuverable, and it is hard to shoot down. And with the Wings of Cain ability, which allows it to pivot twice, so when it advances, it adds 20 inches to its movement, and then instead of rolling a dice each time this model moves, and it pivots 90 degrees like a normal flyer, it could pivot 90 degrees at the end of its movement and at the beginning, which means you can go from one end of the table, basically parallel to the edge, pivot 90, move, and then pivot 90 again, so you can keep strafing back and forth along a line and not have to worry about what other planes do, where they have to go in kind of a rectangle motion. It's good on a flyer standpoint, but it's probably not my favorite. We'll move into some of the other options. Put the Hemlock in here as well. So that was the Crimson Hunter. The Exarch gets an Exarch power. So we'll look at this. It's either Marksman Eye, which can re-roll hit rolls of 1 for models with its ranged weapon. So for an extra, looks like 20 points, you're getting a re-roll 1s to hit. 20 points for an extra 1/6 of a chance. It's okay. And then you get an Exarch power between aerial maneuverability, which is when this moves, it can pivot 180 degrees before it moves instead of 90. So for that, it would mean that it could spin, turn around, spin, turn around. Not if you're smart about your movement, you should never have to do this, but especially since you can shoot out of the back of the plane if you have to in 8th edition. Aerial Predator, when resolving an attack made with a ranged weapon by this model against a unit that can fly, add 1 to the damage characteristic. So your Bright Lances are basically 2 to 7 damage, averaging 4, and your the Pulse Laser is a flat 4 damage. That's really nice, but it's only against things with fly. But there's a large amount of things with fly out there. A lot of vehicles with fly in the Space Marine Primaris sector now. Against all Tau, Eldar, Dark Eldar, all of their vehicles have fly. Evade, giving this thing a 5-up invul save. That's also pretty good. It's basically, you could rewrite that as ignore 1/3 of the damage against this vehicle. When resolving an attack made with a ranged weapon by this model, this target does not receive the benefits of cover to its saving throw. I think this is, so far the ones I've read, this one's the weakest. If your weapon's already -3 or -4, I don't really care if it has cover. And if this thing is meant to, like the Crimson Hunter, to shoot other flyers and other vehicles, giving a vehicle a cover save is pretty hard to do in the first place. This model does not suffer the penalty for moving and firing heavy weapons. Okay, well, that is actually really good. But we'll, and then Strafing Assault, look at the last one. When resolving an attack made with a ranged weapon by this model against a unit that cannot fly, reroll wound rolls of 1. Okay, so this basically means against all of its prime targets, so every vehicle, even if it can't fly, it's getting the reroll 1s to wound. I probably, personally, would pick the the aerial predator, increasing its damage, and then hopefully getting, if I was going to take an Exarch, and then Marksman Eye, reroll hit rolls of 1, or Exemplar of the Hunter Shrine. Okay. That's the Exarch. My personal favorite is the Hemlock Wraithfighter. It gives you another plane, which all the planes are equally maneuverable, which is awesome for the Eldar. It gives you Psychic Presence, and a Psychic Presence that is able to move across the whole board if needed. It also gives you a Deny, which is something you may not have in some Eldar builds, and a Deny that can skirt that 24-inch range needed to stop something. It's not going to give you a great offensive spell output because its buffs can only be dealt to itself. So if you're not familiar with the runes of battle that can cast from, each spell has 2 different spells associated with it. Buff spell that if a normal caster was casting it would be able to cast on anyone, but the plane when it casts it can only cast it on itself. And a debuff spell, which is great to have in the area. Conceal Reveal is +1 cover save, -1 cover save to an opponent. Embolden Horrify is add 2 to your leadership for the buff, and then subtract 1 from leadership around it. So the Hemlocks already have a negative leadership buff in the Mind Shock pods, which subtract 2 leadership characteristics if they're in 12 inches of any enemy Hemlock Wraithfighter. So -3 to their leadership is surprisingly helpful. If you're shooting against a 5-man Primaris Space Marine squad and their leadership 8, and you can make them -3 leadership, making them leadership 5, which means they now, if you kill any of the Primaris in that squad, have a 1/3 chance of at least one more of them running away. It's really, really nice. But then it's a Psyker. Spirit Stones is a built-in invul save, 5-up invul, or it's a 6-up feel no pain, essentially. So the plane does not actually have an invul save on its own. Has the -1 to hit, with the Alatok stacking another -1 to hit. And the weapons are D size. So it's a 16-inch Assault 3 automatically hit weapon. Assault D3 automatically hit weapon. And you have 2 of them. So you are essentially at 16 inches Assault 2D3, averaging 4 hits. Strength 12, -4, 2 damage. So this plane at 16 inches away, compared to the Crimson Hunter, is going to hit on average 4 times, where the Crimson Hunter is going to hit on average 3 times between all of its weapons. It's going to wound better because it's going to wound even T8 and T9 things on 3s. And this thing automatically hits. It doesn't need to like reroll 1s to hit, reroll all hits, doesn't matter. It's automatically hit. So if you're up against things that stack extra negatives to hit, it doesn't matter. Boom. And then damage 2 and AP -4. So I personally believe, sorry to hit the mic, I personally believe this is an extremely versatile flyer. Damage 2 means that Primaris Marines hate this. This plane's going to fly up and start smoking Marines. Easy. And because they're 2 different flamers, and you have the negative to leadership bubble, you don't have to put both flamers into the same unit. Say you give one unit -3 leadership, you put one flamer into them, you kill 2 guys. There's a 50 to 60% chance the rest of that unit runs away. So you can take the whole other flamer and be point effective with it and put it into another unit. And that is crazy good. You could take... this is the most point heavy, both power level and point wise, of all the flyers. But I mean, by 40 points, I don't think that you would take anything other than the Hemlock Wraith Fighter. It is really good. Now, I haven't personally looked at the Nightwing or the Phoenix, and we can do that right now. Nightwing and the Phoenix, just to see what their airborne, crash and burn, crystal targeting matrix. So for 5 points, a model with the crystal targeting matrix does not suffer the penalty for firing a heavy weapon after moving when targeting the closest enemy unit. So you're going to be extremely maneuverable. You're probably going to be able to make sure the thing you want to shoot is the closest, so you get to get an extra ignore the -1 to hit. Now, the Hemlock Fighter doesn't care about moving and firing heavy weapons because it auto hits. So all these bonuses that you're paying for with the other planes, it's built in for free. And the Heavy D Scythe is an assault weapon, which means you could advance this plane every turn and fire it at -1 to hit, which you don't care about because you automatically hit. This flyer can be anywhere on the board at any time. You just got to be careful with how you turn it, but again, I think it's a Hemlock Wraith Fighter for the win. The Nightwing has 2 Bright Lances and a twin Shuriken Cannon. The 2 Bright Lances are the same as the Crimson Hunter, and you're just giving up the 2-shot anti-vehicle weapon for a 6-shot strength 6 AP 0 damage 1 with rending kind of weapon. So it's got a little bit of an anti-infantry feel, as well as your twin Bright Lances. It also has a special called Vector Shift. At the start of the movement phase, before this model's moved, the controlling player must declare if it's operating with either its extended wings or retracted wings. When operating with retracted wings, this model advances, add 24 inches to its move characteristic for the movement phase instead of rolling a dice. It also gains a 5-up invul save until it switches to operating with extended wings. While operating with extended wings, this model may be turned to face directly towards any one model it has in line of sight instead of performing its first pivot in the movement phase. This model then adds 1 when making hit rolls against the chosen enemy model for the following shooting phase, but also loses the hard to hit ability until it switches to operating with retracted wings. So this is actually kind of nice. The Vector Shift, having your wings in, allows less maneuverability, higher speed, but because of that speed you're getting your invul save. But you could switch during your movement phase to pull the wings out, basically face something that you want to shoot down, and then you get the crystal targeting matrix buff of having +1 against the closest thing, or essentially moving and firing, ignoring the moving and firing penalty against the closest thing. And with the shifting vector, you're facing the closest thing, going straight towards it, stopping, shooting it with your Bright Lances. I like this little kit, and for 133 points, it's a steal. I think it's better than the Hemlock Wraith Fighter? No, I don't. The Hemlock Wraith Fighter just has so many fringe additions that help it, that the Nightwing is good at what it does, but the Hemlock is good at what it does and helps you out in other facets. Because in a tournament, which I'm making this list and prepping for one, I don't know exactly what I'm going to go up against. So having a fighter that's good at one thing, but also can help out in other areas against other builds, having a Deny and a Psyker on the field helps with like the T-Suns, helps with Grey Knights, helps with a ton of different builds that really it would be great to have that. You don't get that with the Nightwing, and I don't think you get that with the Phoenix either. But if we look at the Phoenix, so the Nightwing's going to go away. If we look at the Phoenix, it's got Airborne Crash and Burn like all the Flyers. It's got Hard to Hit like the Flyers. It's got a Phoenix Pulse Laser. Come on. Which is the Heavy 2, Strength 9, AP -3, 3 damage. The Phoenix Pulse Laser is 1 better strength than the Crimson Hunter Pulse Laser. It's got a Phoenix Missile Array, so a Heavy D6, Strength 6, AP -3, 2 damage. That's going to be a good Primaris killer weapon. And it's got the Twin Shuriken Cannon, sorry. The Assault 6 Anti-Infantry Strength 6 weapon. This is an infantry killer. And it's got the Crystal Targeting Matrix is the one that you could shoot against the closest unit. Now, I think there's a bit of a trap in this unit though, because you have an with the 2 damage, an anti-good or high tier infantry weapon, anti-Primaris, like anything with multiple wounds. And then the Twin Shuriken Cannon's anti-chaff infantry, and the Pulse Laser is anti-vehicle. So the Crystal Targeting Matrix is going to help you against one of them, but it's not going to help you against all 3 of these units because they're going to be 3 different units. So one of its benefits only benefits one of the 3 weapons at any given time, and you're paying the premium for all 3 weapons all the time. So I think the Phoenix is probably going to go away, and I think we're just going to bring 3 Hemlocks or 3 Hemlocks or a Hemlock and a Crimson Hunter Exarch, but probably 3 Hemlocks. Now, things that the Hemlocks are bad at, they don't have an invul save. They're relying on their minuses to hit, or against being hit, to save them from high AP shooting. That doesn't help in some cases, and there's going to be times that you're going to have to be good and strategic with how you place your flyers around the board in order to mitigate the damage that these things are going to see. But we've talked for about 30 minutes already on just the air wing, and we'll move on to the meat of the army, which is the other 1,400-ish points for the battalion. So the battalion kind of opens up us to the whole rest of the Eldar Codex. And from a craft world perspective, we can go Ulthwé is a Feel No Pain? The 6-up Feel No Pain. We have Sam Han for all the biker units. Do not suffer the penalty to their hit rolls for moving and firing heavy weapons. The Illidan, which are can never lose more than 1 model as a result from any single failed morale test. The Bealtan for Aspect Warriors with this attribute gets 1 leadership, and then you could reroll hit rolls of 1 for Shuriken weapons used by units with this attribute. If you're going to go Shuriken heavy, Bealtan's definitely the way to go. Let's pick this later. Let's pick this after we've built what we're going against. Now, HQ section, I'm not going to go through them all. There's tons. But we could look at a couple that we see a lot. We see Farseer Skyrunners, so we may put one of them in there. We may see a Warlock Skyrunner, and maybe a Spirit Seer. A lot of these units I feel are fluffy and they're good, and their buffs are good against aspects of an Eldar army. But when you go to a tournament, in order to maximize any one of these buffs, like the Autarch or the Magnum Ra, who's the guy who buffs the Dark Reapers. To maximize his buff, you want to take a lot of Dark Reapers, which means you're going to want to play against things that Dark Reapers are good against, which isn't necessarily the case when you're at a 120 person all-comers tournament. You just don't know what you're going to play. So bringing one of these named characters that buff a particular facet of the Eldar army, while the models themselves are beautiful models, and they're definitely something I'd take to a fluffy tournament or a theme tournament or a someplace where I know the meta is going to be in a particular focus. I think keeping more general HQ choices, the Autarchs, the Warlocks, the Farseers, are going to benefit you more here. I also picked the Skyrunners because the mobility is key to this list. Eldar are not going to win in a punch fest. You're not going to outpunch any of the melee armies. You're not even really going to outshoot any of the shooty heavy armies like Tau. If you're going to just stand, or like an Imperial Guard gun line, you're going to just stand in the open and try and outshoot a Tau or Imperial Guard gun line, you're going to have a bad day. It's going to be a bad time. So you really want to go with high mobility, which will allow you to pick your targets effectively and hedge your bets against other people so you could hit their army where it's weak. And adding the Skyrunner is basically putting them on a jet bike and will change their movement to 16 inches instead of 6 inches and allow you to advance. Let's see, they have Ride the Wind. You just add 6 inches to their advance. The advance, both the Farseer Warlock and the Warlock Skyrunner and the Farseer Skyrunner aren't, shooting guys. Yes, they have twin shuriken catapults, and they got a shuriken pistol, but they're not going to get their points back from shooting. They're going to get their points back by casting key spells, which don't care if you advanced or not. So if you just bake in that you're going to advance every turn, you have a 22-inch movement with this guy to hold an objective, to get in, to deny, to get in, to cast, whatever it needs. And he's on a 62-point body with the character rule. So the planes can screen for him. The other units you have can screen for him. I definitely would... he's so cheap, so good. Max yourself out on some Warlock Skyrunners and a Farseer Skyrunner. The reason I wouldn't take 3 Warlock Skyrunners is because they cast from 2 different schools, and you're already taking 3 Warlock spells in here out of your planes. You might take one of every Warlock spell at this point. In the Farseer, you definitely want some of these spells like Guide, Doom, Fortune's great, Mind War is at best, Executioner is like a Smite, so it's kind of Will of Azurian I probably never have used, but that'll be our HQ section. And if you look, we're at, let's say the list is at 886 points, so we're about half, coming up on half of our total points. Troops is about where the Eldar Codex is the weakest in selection. So Rangers used to be an extremely good choice early on in 8th edition when you were able to infiltrate them anywhere on the board, but now you can't infiltrate them anywhere on the board in the beginning of the game. You could do that later on in the game, but then they count as moving, and they're shooting their heavy sniper rifles at -1, and you don't necessarily get their benefits right off the bat. They still get their -1 to hit from the chameleon cloaks, which will stack if you take Alatok for an extra -1 to hit. But I mean, for a 60-point squad, which is the second most expensive of your troop choices, it's situational at best. Now, Dire Avengers is a 5-man squad. They have Avenger Shuriken catapults. So the basic weapon for the troops, or the Shuriken catapult, is a Strength 4 weapon, Assault 2. The Dire Avengers give them an extra 6 inches, so normally it's a 12-inch range, which is bad. You're going to be outranged by bolters that are shooting you at 24. You're a Toughness 3 army, which is, for a Strength 4 weaponry, is going to be tough to handle from an infantry standpoint. Everything's going to seem like it's going to be able to outshoot you from an infantry shooting infantry class. You got to lean on your strengths. So in Eldar strength, it's mobility, it's trickiness, and it's good firepower, not in the troop choice. So when it comes to that, then you're really going to look at how could I be most point effective in the troop choice, and that's going to be your Dire Avengers or your Storm Guardians. Now, a group of Storm Guardians, let's see, is 48 points for 8 guys. And they come with pistols and swords. Let's look at the pistol. The Eldari blades are probably Strength 3, I'm guessing. Let's look. Well, Strength user, so Strength 3, AP 0, 1 damage, and can reroll failed hit rolls with the weapon. Hitting's not going to be your issue. You don't necessarily, with a Toughness 3, 4 or 5 up save unit. Will it show me here what the save is? Yeah, 5 up save. So you're a Toughness 3, 5 up save unit. You don't want to be in close combat to begin with. You're not going to do well there. Like, you are worse than a fire warrior in close combat with Strength 3, Toughness 3, 5 up save. So yeah, you'll get to reroll your failed hit rolls. You're hitting on 3s anyway. You're going to be wounding on 5s, if not worse, and that's where you need the rerolls, and you're not going to get it from these guys. They do have plasma grenades though. So at 6 inches, grenade D6, strength 4, which is, frag grenade-ish, AP -1, 1 damage. If the guys are charging your unit and they're within 6 inches, definitely feel free, throw a plasma grenade. It's worth it. And then they got Shuriken pistols. Shuriken pistol, 12-inch range, just like your Shuriken catapult. It's pistol, so you can shoot it in close combat. It's only 1 shot, where at a 12-inch range, the normal guns would get 2 shots. It's strength 4. It's AP 0 and it's 1 damage. And for wound rolls of a 6, it's AP -3 instead of 0. You are statistically better shooting with your pistols in close combat with these guys than actually using their weapon, like their melee weapons. So why would you pick Storm Guardians? Like the Rangers, they've got snipers, they can snipe characters, they're 60 points. The Guardian Defenders, they'd have the ability to take a weapons platform. And they're Dire Avengers, they're 5 guys, but they're putting out 10 shots at 12 inches, or at 16 inches. I say any points you can save in your troop choice, Eldar being the weakest of the troop choice, being probably the weakest area, I would. So you need 3 troop choices for the battalion. If you take 3 Storm Guardians, I think, or Storm Guardian units, they could hold backfield objectives. They could hold. They're not going to be in the face. They can be chaff for other things that you want to bring. Let's see what options they have for upgrades. They have. They could bring a chainsword, and then they could. One guy from the index can bring a power sword, and you could have a guy with a special weapon. Let's see what the special weapon options are. So a flamer. I'm not. Yeah, it's not tickling my fancy. You don't want them that close anyway. If you're close enough that the flamer is supposed to do something for 12 points, you're already not. You're not in a good day. You're not doing a good time. So, this is probably the first half of the army, and a good chunk of the points are actually in the flyers. The Storm Guardians also would be good to chaff out in front of your army to give yourself extra blocking for the character special rule on your Warlocks and your Farseers. So, say some big, like, shield captain on a Dawn Eagle jet bike comes in. And he just comes in and he's going to wreck your face. He's going to charge something. Well, maybe you bring your Storm Guardians over to shield from that charge. And yeah, they're going to eat whatever he puts out. 16, 12 bolter shots. He's going to wreck this unit. For 48 points, though, let him. Because then the 62-point Skyrunner comes over with the other Skyrunner, and they smite, and they just eat the guy away. And that guy's 100 and some, almost pushing 200 points. So you've effectively helped yourself out there a ton in point effectiveness between the Skyrunners and the Guardians, using your chaff effectively and using your mobility effectively. For the elite choices, I actually have never seen this lady. Is she the lady from she's from that boxed game set. She's got the chameleon cloak that the other snipers get. She's got the same rule that during deployment you can set her up in the webway, and then she can come in during the end of any of my movement phases. This unit can emerge from the webway 9 inches away from another model. Got a phase crystal. She's a 4-up invul save. It can move across models and terrain if they were not there. That's actually pretty interesting. Does she come with a sniper like the other snipers do? Plasma grenade, Power Ranger long rifle, which is the sniper. So it's going to be a heavy one, strength 4, can target characters, wound rolls of a 6, deal immortal. Is she a base BS2? She is a BS2. So she's hitting on 2s with an extra little mortal capability. For a 50-point tech piece like this, it's not bad. And to have her there chilling, and someone's going to devote 150, 200 points just to deal with her, to like get her out of wherever she is, to ping a couple mortals on a key character. Might keep her around. Fire dragons are good. They're a good tech piece. They're an anti-vehicle tech piece. If we look at what the fire dragons are bringing to the table, they have the fusion guns, so they're going to be your anti-vehicle. I'll pull it up. How's everybody doing? I see a couple viewers jumped in the chat right now. We're reviewing. I'm going into a tournament in the future, not right now, not when everything's shut down, but I'm going to think about bringing Eldar, because I play Eldar somewhat competitively, to a tournament, and I'm talking through with everybody my mindset on what I bring, why I bring it, looking at different unit capabilities and units that'll come in. I'm also good to talk about whatever you guys If you guys are theory crafting or list crafting, if you're interested in Eldar at all, or if you're interested in, I play other armies too, and other members of the team play a lot of different armies, so I'm pretty knowledgeable. Also, if you want to see something else thrown up here, or to theory craft a different army, just throw it up in the chat, and I'll jump over. It's not a big deal. But with the fire dragons, we're looking at their anti-vehicle tech piece. They have the strike assault 1. So there's 5 of them, 5 shots hitting on 3s. So you're looking at 4 or 3 hits. At strength 8. Most vehicles you're looking at toughness 8. So you're wounding on 4s, which means you're already down to 2 or 1 wound. And if the target is within half range, you roll 2 dice when inflicting damage. So the worst thing to see against these guys is anything with an invul save. If the vehicle doesn't have an invul save, your 2 wounds that go through that are hopefully, potentially, let's say they are at half range, which is 6 inches, again, that's rough. 6 inches is not where you want to be with a 110 point unit, but if you drop them in, you get 2 or 3 wounds against a vehicle that doesn't have an invul save, and you're statistically rolling 2d6, taking the highest on damage. You can get 10 wounds onto a Lehman Russ. Drop in, boom, 10 wounds on your Lehman Russ, effectively drops that Lehman Russ to its bottom tier, and it's going from hitting on, if it's not a Lehman Russ captain, it's a regular Lehman Russ, it goes from hitting on 4s to 5s to 6s. You've effectively taken it out of the combat. No, you haven't killed it, but it's not effective anymore. Which, for 110 points to drop down and take out a 200 plus point vehicle, perfect. That's what you want to do. That's your job. But I don't know if I'm going to go against those kind of armies. So maybe I'll take 1 unit of them. I don't know. I would not ever take more than 1 unit unless I knew that the meta I was going into was heavy in the things that this was going to be good against. They also have a rule called Assured Destruction, which reroll wound rolls of 1 in the shooting phase against attacks that are against monsters and vehicles. This is perfect because you're already a strength 8 weapon, which means you're going to wound things on 3s and 4s anyway. Rerolling your 1s helps to push more wounds out on the vehicles that are good. The trap I see a lot of people that play fire dragons get into is that they play them, they go against a knight, and they see the knight and they're like, oh, that knight needs to go. They drop their fire dragons in, they blast everything they've got into the knight, and then the knight gets to make its 5-up invul saves against it, or if they rotate ion shields, they're making 4-up invul saves, which takes your 2 or 3 wounding hits that you'd get through, and will cut it in half. So the damage that you're expecting to get through on a knight is not going to happen with these fire dragons. But you have Howling Banshees, another elite choice in your elite spot. Howling Banshees, they're a kind of a trick unit that have a very good niche in that they can't be overwatched against. So they're toughness 3, their weapons are strength 3, they're good AP on their weapons. I think their weapons are -3 AP with their power swords. They may be -2. -3 AP on their power swords, 1 damage, but you want them to get into close combat with something that you don't want shooting, like Hellblasters. Perfect against a Hellblaster squad to get the Howling Banshees in close, either via transport or via dropping them in through a stratagem, charging the Hellblasters, which can't overwatch them, and then you just have a slap fight in the center of the board. You're not going to kill them. They're 2 wound models at toughness 4. You're swinging at strength 3, wounding on 5s, doing 1 damage apiece. You're not going to kill it, but you're going to stop them from shooting, which is entirely what those 55 point tech piece of 5 models is going to do. But that again is situational. A lot of things you're going to see, like against Tau. Well, against Tau it's great too, because they can't be overwatched. So it turns off the whole Tau army. Their whole thing is they're going to castle up. The Tau army is going to get together and they can overwatch for each other. But at the Howling Banshees, 5 models get in, and you spread them out as far apart as you can, each model, and you touch as many units as possible. Those units no longer can declare Overwatch against the other things that are coming in. So for 55 points, maybe as a little tech piece to have against Tau and other infantry heavy shooting. But and when Hellblasters were big, I'd see taking Howling Banshees more. I don't see enough Tau in my meta to really care about taking an anti-Tau tool. And the Space Marines and heavy shooting I am going to probably see are going to come from vehicles, which the Banshees might be able to tie up, but they're not going to be able to wrap with just 5 models, which means every turn they're just going to leave combat. And a lot of things that would leave combat have tools either in stratagems or built into their rule sets that will allow them to leave combat and still shoot. 55 points isn't hateful though for a small tech tool like that. Shadow Spectres are a Forge World variant. They have got 2 shooting capabilities. They can shoot with a sustained burst or a let's pull it up. I forgot what the second one's called. Coherent or diffused. Coherent is a 18-inch range, assault 1, strength 6, -3, 1 damage, and each hit inflicted with this weapon allows an additional attack roll to be made with it. As long as each following attack hits, the controlling player may keep making attack rolls until the total of 3 hits have been inflicted. So, downside to this unit, it's 3 dudes. 3 models. And I think they're only 1 wound. So you're paying 69 points. Nice. For 3 wounds. Defensively, they do have an extra -1 to hit built in. So with Alatok, you're looking at an extra, you're -2 at 12 inches away, which is good. But I don't think they'll be point effective because you're looking at strength 6 being an anti elite infantry kind of weapon, especially with -3. AP is going to want to be a Primaris killer, but at 1 damage, you're not going to kill a Primaris Marine. You're really going to want to see 2 damage on that. We're probably going to remove that. Also, if we're talking about just weapon, like models that are easier to get, Shadow Spectres are a Forge World. They're in resin. It's going to be expensive and hard to get those compared to the other options. Striking Scorpions are your anti-chaff infantry. They have this weird niche where they're good in buildings, but that's super rare to find, especially in tournaments, to try and build around that. Wraith Blades are an Eldar melee unit. They're 3 wounds apiece on a Wraith, and this unit comes with 5 guys, so you're looking at 15 wounds. They add 1 to the attack characteristics of models in that unit in a turn in which it charged. So they're attacking with, if it charges, it's got 3 attacks each. You're looking at 15 attacks. Weapon skill 3 puts it to 10 hits. Strength 5 is nice, with +1 strength, so strength 6 on their swords. And then every time they fight, they make an additional attack. So there'll be 4 attacks apiece the turn they charge at weapon skill 3, strength 6. AP -3. That will tear up some dudes. Now, what's hard with this is that you're looking at toughness 6, which is good for elite infantry. Only a 3-up save. So they're not going to save on anything with a -1 or -2. Is going to push them to 4s and 5s, and they're going to have to rely on the idea that they have 3 wounds apiece to try and keep them. And they're 175 points for a unit of 5 of these guys. You're hoping that that unit puts out just as much damage as comparatively to the Hemlock Wraithfighter in the 200 point range. But this is an entirely melee unit, which means it's not going to get into combat until turns 2, 3, 4, and by then the game's almost over. And also, Wraith units don't really have any synergies in an overall sense with the army, so it's going to be hard to synergize with them. Now, Wraith Guard are a little bit cheaper at 165, and their guns, their Wraith cannons, are 12-inch range, so relatively short range. My name? Oh, am I... your name. I didn't catch that the whole time, Frosty. Let's fix that. Cool. Thanks for pointing that out so that I could look like an idiot for the last, like hour or per se. But yeah, we were just talking about Wraithguard and how I wouldn't take them necessarily. But we're getting into the meat and potatoes of an Eldar list, where a good chunk of my points were in HQ and flyers. Definitely leaving points out of the troops and elite choices. And then going into fast attack and heavy support. Fast attack units, Hornets, and the Wasp Assault Walkers are your Forge World choices. I don't know enough about either of those units to really talk about them much. Shining Spears are a great like anti-chaff harass with the amount of shuriken fire that can come out of the bottom of them, and in a last-ditch effort, anti-vehicle. These guys are still, they suffer from the idea that you want to shoot vehicles that don't have innate invul saves, because the math gets a little hairy when an invul save is part of it. Swooping Hawks, they are great anti-chaff. A unit of 5 could take out pretty statistically a Imperial Guard, small Imperial Guard unit in one round of shooting, and they drop in. They also have a little tech piece where when the turn they drop in, they could drop bombs and on 6s. I mean, sometimes I've had it deal a mortal wound or 2. Most of the times I don't have them deal anything with the bombs. It's too iffy. It's not something you want to forget about, but it's too iffy to be reliable or to have to rely on something like that. So if there's a lot of Imperial Guard troops in your meta, if there's a lot of Tau, like Kroot spam or Fire Warrior spam in your meta, yeah, I'd see taking a unit of Swooping Hawks. I probably won't. There's a lot of Space Marines, a lot of T4 in the meta, and Strength 3 guns, no matter how many shots you put out, I have not found to be reliable against a Toughness 4 army. Vipers are like a weapons platform, kind of a skimmer. You're looking at 6 wounds, a high mobility, and it comes with a shuriken cannon and twin shuriken catapult base. It can be upgraded to missile launchers, bright lances, but it's a very point effective. Like at 47 points, it's gonna put out 3 strength 6 shots and 4 strength 4 shots. Probably, I mean, 24-inch range is kind of rough, but if you're at 24-inch range and you're moving 16 inches a turn, you're going to be able to get to 24 inches, stay at exactly 24 inches, and slowly move away as slower armies aren't able to catch up with you. The Shuriken Cannon is good. The scatter laser is cheaper if you're trying to save some points. The scatter laser being heavy 4, strength 6 -1 at 36 inches. So it's a 36-inch gun. The reason it's cheaper is because it's heavy. Just by moving, you're going to be shooting less on this. So this is more of a stationary gun platform option. The Bright Lance is 20 points, and the Missile Launcher are both 20 points. Bright Lance being anti-vehicle, Eldar Missile Launcher being a more versatile option. Strength 8, AP2, D6 damage, heavy 1, and you have the Sunburst, which is D6, strength 4, -1, 1 damage. And I actually really like this little tech tool. So for 20 points with a missile launcher on it, you have the anti-vehicle shot option, the anti-infantry shot option, and you have a little anti-infantry gun at 12 inches range. But the thing is that the main gun shoots at 48, which is going to be the whole distance, short distance on the table, and over half or 2/3 of the table, the long distance of the table. And if you have the ability to, because this unit can fly, if you have the ability to keep it up on the second or third floor of a building, you can keep it away from chaff that would mess with it and get more missile shots off. So I may take a couple of these and keep them all with the missile launchers. So 170 points, you're looking at 3 Vipers, 3 missile launchers, 3 twin shuriken catapults. The twin shuriken catapults are going to be a close range kind of take out your chaff infantry that's running at you, your poxwalkers, your Imperial Guardsmen, your Tau Fire Warriors, Kroot, some Space Marines, some harass stuff, and the missile launchers will shoot out your vehicles or any high target infantry gunners that are farther away. Looking at a Falcon, or sorry, we're still in fast attack. Warp Spiders got hit hard in the 8th edition. They used to be great in 7th edition because they used to be able to move, warp move. When they got shot at, you could warp them again to put them behind cover so they couldn't get shot at. But now their whole warping thing got turned into an extra -1 to hit, and on a 2d6 on a roll of a 2, so 1 in 36 chance, a model from the unit just dies. And their weapons are 12-inch range, assault 2, strength 6, no AP. And you just don't want to be 12 inches away from the thing you're shooting at. Not with a toughness 3, 1 wound, 3 up save model. You don't want to be 12 inches. You want to stay further away. And if you do want to get close, you want to have the built-in defenses like the Hemlock Wraith Fighters do to be able to hit, kill what they're targeting, and then get out. Wind Riders are just regular bike units. They have the anti-infantry shooting, which is good. This would be a great unit to have if you were taking it's not Alatalk, if you're taking the being able to advance and shoot. Oh, so Frosty, if you're looking at range, what you're going to start with in fast attack is the Vipers. It's deceptive because their gun range is so short, but the Hemlock Wraith Fighters being able to get in, move 40 plus inches, and then shoot an additional 16 on top of that, their range is actually kind of built into their movement. For long range in an Eldar list, you're really looking at their heavy support options, which is going to come from Fire Prisms. Fire Prisms at 142 points are good. They have a 3-tiered gun, which will... Yeah, pull it up in a second. So you basically can choose a heavy D6 anti-infantry or anti-elite infantry weapon, a heavy D3 anti-vehicle weapon, or a heavy 1 anti-everything weapon. I've never seen anyone use the heavy 1 option, because strength 9 you're almost gonna wound everything on 3s anyway. But the trap people fall in when they get fire prisms is they look at that stratagem that they have, Eldar have, that says the linked fire. You can reroll hits and wounds, but they have to fire at the same thing. So they're like, oh, well, that's great. You need 3 fire prisms. Okay, so if I'm going to throw all 3 fire prisms in here, I'm looking at 462 points dedicated to kill one thing every shooting phase. It's a quarter of your list dedicated to kill one thing. It's not point effective. So maybe in my opinion, take 1 if you're going to use that, or look at your other options. So you have Falcons as another option. You have Dark Reapers. I am a personal fan of Dark Reapers. They have 2 fire options. The unit comes with 3 guys. They're can shoot at heavy 1, strength 8, or heavy 2, strength 5. So an anti-elite infantry or an anti-vehicle weapon. 3 shots out of them. So it's essentially like 3 little missile launchers coming out of there at 48-inch range. Downside to these guys, and see that you brought up a good point, Frosty, that the when you're looking at the triple fire prism build, let's see what shots. So they're gonna put out its D3 number of shots. So they're gonna shoot at a vehicle. It's strength 9, D3 shots. You're gonna put all 3 guns together. That's 3D3 shots. So you're at 2, 4, 6 shots. You get to re-roll your hits, and you're hitting on probably 3s. Yeah, you're hitting on 3s. So 6 shots hitting on 3s. You've got 4 hits out of that. Then you're gonna wound on 3s. Oh, probably 5, because you get to re-roll it. So 5 out of the 6 hit. Then you're wounding on 3s, re-rolling that, because you're gonna shoot a knight. This is the best case scenario. You're gonna shoot a knight. So those 3 guys hit 5 times. They wound 4 out of 5, because you're wounding on 3s, re-rolling. You've got 4 D3 damage on a knight. Okay, that knight guy is going to rotate ion shields, so he's going to save 2 of those. So you have 2 D3 damage. If you maxed out that roll, you're going to deal 6 damage. On average, you're going to deal 4 damage between all 3 of those tanks shooting that knight. Then, turn 2, that Gallant that took 4 damage turn 1 is going to run up to one of your fire prisms, and he's going to punt that fire prism off the board. I've seen it time and time again that people fall into this idea that 3 fire prisms and the stratagem makes the math so great. And it does make the math good against elite infantry. But that's not what people are shooting the fire prisms at. They're shooting them at big tanks. And the big tanks with an invul save can eat up that fire. And you're not going to make 426 points back until turn 3 or turn 4. And by that time, a bunch of your fire prisms are going to die. They're going to be shot up or destroyed, or they're going to sit in the back of the board trying to target priority, and they're not going to be holding objectives. I personally think 3 fire prisms is a huge trap, and I'm not going to do that. Yeah, 100%. They see the reroll, they get tunnel visioned on big models, and then they they get their 1 turn of shooting out. They deal 4 or 5 damage to something, which isn't even enough to bracket the knight. It's not enough to bracket a repulsor. It's enough to hurt a single Leman Russ. But at that time, in order to make those points back, you're going to need to kill 3 or 4 Leman Russes, which if you kill 1 a turn is enough. But those Leman Russes will kill you first. Like, I don't see it. I don't see it personally. I played against it. I've even played with it. Lugnag, how's it going, man? So Brawlhalla, I saw your little tag there. I've ever played that game. So sorry. You got me. You got my blood boiling on the fire prism, the hole. But Night Spinners are interesting. They're an interesting tech piece. We look at them. Their weapon is a 48-inch, so all the way across the board on a short edge, 2/3 of the board on a long edge. Pretty easy, as long as you can maintain line of sight to different things to maintain a good firing arc here. 2d6 shots, so average is 7 shots a round. Strength 7. Strength 7's great anti-infantry, and now that you've hit Strength 7, you're starting to get anti-light vehicles. And on wound rolls of a 6, it resolves at AP -4 instead of 0. So with 7 shots, you may get a wound roll of a 6 every turn. Like, you'd probably... I mean, you're probably... I don't know the math off the top of my head, but you're looking at like I don't know, 40-50% chance of getting one of the AP -4 shot. But a great thing, sorry, look, some came in. We played Age of Sigmar for the past 8 months, no experience with 40k, looking to get into it. Starting with Kill Team. Kill Team's a great way to start building into 40k. Lugnag, let me give you a little piece of advice. If you're looking to get into 40k, you're looking to get into Kill Team, and especially if you're thinking about Necrons, the rumor mill that has it is that Necrons are one of the flagship armies for 9th edition, and also in the rumors is that June is when 9th edition of 40k is supposed to come out. So I would hold off if you're trying to look at a Necron army. Like, definitely enough for Kill Team. Kill Team's a beautiful game, and it's a great way of getting into 40k. But if you're looking at getting into Necrons especially, if by June there isn't at least a release of this is what the starter set's going to look like for 40k next year, and if the rumor mill is to be believed, that starter set will have Necrons in it, it may be the best time for you to build a Necron army. Getting into Necrons. Just to throw that out there. Great time for Necrons. Beautiful models. Great storyline. Couldn't pick a better army. I'm all for it. If you have any questions about Necrons too, I have the Necron Codex here, at least from 7th, if not 8th edition. And I do know a decent amount about Necrons. If you had anything. I don't know a whole lot about Necrons in Kill Team, but Necrons in 40k in general, I'm pretty decent about. Getting back to the Doomweaver, AP, you get 1 AP -4 at Strength 7. The 2 damage, though, is going to be kicker. That's where you're going to catch a lot of people. You'll put this, since it has to be outside of line of sight, put one of these behind a building where someone can't see it. It can't get shot at. And then you're going to put 7 shots into a Primaris squad. You're going to get that lucky AP -4, and you're going to delete a Primaris. Right there. 2 wounds. Pop. And then he's going to fail a couple saves. For every save he does fail, a whole other Primaris gets removed. Boom, 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 boom. For, what is this, 112 points? A little bit on the expensive side, but a Primaris squad is around the 100-ish point level. So if turn 1 you can do enough damage to a Primaris squad, this will synergize really well with the Hemlock Wraithfighter's negative to leadership. So I was saying it earlier, the Hemlock Wraithfighter goes up, it's got a -2 leadership bubble. The leadership's 8 on a Primaris squad. It's got 5 guys in it, so usually it's really hard to get any of them to run. But the Hemlock Wraithfighter's got a spell for -1 leadership. It's got a -2 static to every unit within 12. You pop that in their army. So now that leadership 8 unit, sorry, I saw Lugnag, I saw you said something, but I'm on a rant. I'll get to it right after I finish my rant. So the -3 leadership bubble. So their leadership 8 down to 5. And then you take your Death Spitter, you kill 1, maybe 2 guys, and then they're doing a leadership check where the other 3 have a 33% chance of just running away. You get that lucky insta-kill for 1 guy, and then normally you think, oh, that insta-kill of 1 guy is not that big a deal. It's 1 out of 4. But when that unit is -3 leadership, forcing them to make that leadership check at -3 when you've insta-gibbed 1 guy, oh, it's so good. So I love making Space Marines run because that's something they've never had to experience. Space Marine armies are so good at leadership control, and they usually don't build any defenses in because the unit's already good at leadership control. If you start attacking them where they're not used to being attacked, oh, you could scare some Space Marine players away. So, sorry, I promised, Lugnag, I'm getting back to you. So you're going to get a start collecting box to have enough bits for Kill Team. And then if it's spring, summer, the Psychic Awakening update for them, it'll be hype. Still fleshing out a Khorne Nurgle army in Age of Sigmar anyway. And so fine being patient and waiting. Yeah, no problem, man. Khorne Nurgle Demon, right? Not Khorne Nurgle like Warriors of Khorne and like Death Knights, right? It's the Demon army, because that's straight transferable into 40k. Khorne Demons and Demons in general is a great army in 40k, especially even if you just wanted to dip your toe in learning the rules. But I think you got the right mentality of just starting with the Kill Team. The Necron start collecting box, if I remember correctly, it's some Immortals, it's a Lord, and it's like a Triarch Stalker, the spider thing. It's a good start collecting box. It's everything you'll need for Kill Team. Perfect for what you said you need it for. But the problem I have with that and a lot of start collecting boxes, while it's great to start collect, it does what it needs to do very well. It gives you a little bit of different synergies for the army, but they don't necessarily work with each other. They give you jumping off points to build to, but in and of itself, if you're going to just grab the start collecting box and try and play just the start collecting box, other people that play at the same point level that build a synergistic list, you're going to feel at a disadvantage with just the start collecting box. So just if you know that, you're going into the game knowing that, I think that will help. Like, don't feel bad if you get raffle stomped a couple games, but then you realize like, oh, I really like this Triarch Stalker. Maybe I'll get and expand into some Tomb Glaives or Tomb Blades because they complement the Triarch Stalker better. Or maybe I like these Immortals. Maybe I'll get the Gun Scythe, the giant flyer, looks like a croissant roll, because they'll pick them up and put them down somewhere else. Just food for thought. We're just thinking out loud. But again, you're on a great road. If you're just starting out in 40k, there's no better hobby that I've had played with. It's awesome to have you in the community. And we do shows every Saturday to talk about 40k stuff and Age of Sigmar stuff and modeling stuff in general on this channel. So feel free to drop by for any of those Saturday shows, or go to our website, leave us a comment. We'd love to talk about Necrons one time and have you on, or even talking about Khorne or Nurgle, just to pick your brain, figure out what you're doing. All that set aside, back to Eldar, because we'll wrap this up, and I know it's getting late for everybody. Other heavy weapon supports that you have. You've got support weapon batteries, which I think are the D batteries. They're a Shadow Weaver or a D cannon, or Vibro cannon. So it's a weapon battery for the Shadow Weaver, heavy D6, heavy 6, strength 6, damage 1, 48 inches, doesn't need to be visible to the bearer. Ooh, I think we just found something, guys. That's a Night Spinner cannon. Oh yeah, but Josh, like, you play these great fluffy lists. Frosty is Josh, sorry guys. But you play these great fluffy lists, and then you're always playing me when I'm like practicing for a tournament. And I can never play your fluffy list like it's fluffy. I have to play like I'm practicing for the dude across the table from me who's gonna bring it to me. And you're a great player, so don't feel bad at all. You have a fair bit of humans, but you're looking to have enough demons to use for 40k. Or rulebook for 40k just ended up getting an Age of Sigmar more since the local scene is bigger. I see that. The 40k scene here is huge, mostly just because a lot of our Team Bad Decision guys are located around here. But Age of Sigmar is also really big. Yeah, the 40k codex. So if you're interested in traveling at all for tournaments, Lugnag, a great like dip your foot into tournament scene that's not hyper competitive but still a good mix of 40k is the Michigan Grand Tournament. You'll get 120, 130 guys coming out for the singles event, and they'll usually have like between 30 and 40 teams for the doubles event. It's in October, so it's still in the planning phases, and hopefully October is far enough away. Yeah. If you're in Chicago, then you're in the mecca of Warhammer 40k and Age of Sigmar. You have Adepticon in your backyard. So that, like, if you've never been to Adepticon either, that is definitely worth going to. It is the best 40k or miniature wargaming like tournament scene, but it's huge. So that's the reason I wouldn't so that's why I wouldn't like jump into Adepticon as your first tournament, because you're going to go there if you were going to get into a tournament scene and then be like, yeah, rip Adepticon. It was canceled due to the corona this year. But, I mean, it'll be back. Adepticon's going to be like a couple hundred people. So it's less tolerable to new players. They have friendly tournaments there. I would highly recommend a friendly tournament. I love going to the friendly tournaments at Adepticon. But it's a lot to take in if you're new to the hobby. But something we just saw, jumping back here, the support weapon, 37 points for half of a Night Spitter weapon. So if I take this out, I remove this, and I just add a second support weapon battery, I could have 3 support weapons for cheaper than one. Oh, Lugnag, thanks for the follow. It really helps, man. The follows are great. If we can get to 50, we can start getting into the affiliate range, and we could, Twitch will let us leave the bottom of the stairs. We can come out and join the regular people. But the 3 support weapon batteries for 111 points, still cheaper than a Night Spinner at 112, but you get 3d6 shots. Same range, 1 less strength, but if you're using it for anti-infantry, strength 6 to strength 7 doesn't really matter for you. And you get 3d6 to get that extra -4 goodness. And if you're using it for the purpose I was, where you're going to shoot at 48 inches against something you can't see, like a infantry squad that's an elite infantry, like your Primaris Marines, they're toughness 4 anyway. So strength 6 or strength 7, you're paying that extra tax for no difference. Oh, thanks for calling that out. I will fix that. So I did have, I apologize, the follower, like, it should have come up and said, like, hey, you're awesome, thanks for following, but I accidentally put my battle scribe up above all of that. So I apologize. Now it's behind. So any future follows will come up in front so everyone can see. But again, Lugnag followed, and I greatly appreciate it. But it should be fixed now. 3 support weapons, 3d6 shots. It's averaging 2 to 3 of those kills. 2 to 3 of the kills. The downside to this is that I don't, since they're one unit, you have to declare all of their targets at the same time, and so you can't be like, if there were 3 separate units, you can be like, I'm going to shoot this one, I resolve the shots, I see if I spiked dice or not, and after resolving the shots, I can then shoot the other one at the same target or a different target. Since they're one unit, I have to declare, even if I am going to shoot at different targets, that I'm doing that before I get to see the results of the dice roll. Other options are D-Cannon. The D-Cannon is bonker strength 12, D3 damage, and D6 damage, D3 shots. The problem with the D-Cannon, it's 24-inch range, which means you're shooting at the center of the table at best. That's rough. You can build lists around D-Cannons being good. I'm making a list from scratch for a potential tournament that I'm going to go to called Buckeye Battles. It's in northern Ohio, because we're based out of Michigan. We're actually real close to you, Lugnag. I'm in Kalamazoo. So, if the Buckeye Battles is still not 100, like, they're taking, small world. They're taking reservations now so I'm building this list as if I'm going to go to Buckeye Battles, but I don't know if it's actually going to go on, or if it may get postponed because of world events and stuff like that. So I've actually been to Buckeye Battles. This will be my 4th year going in a row. So I know a little bit about the meta that I've seen. I know a little bit about the regular characters that are going to go there. And Buckeye Battles, from a singles tournament perspective, pulls in like 60 people. So last year it was 60 people, with 20 of them being Space Marine armies, or Chaos Space Marine armies. Oh yeah, super close to Kalamazoo, South Bend, Indiana. But and so I'm building this list to take to Buckeyes, knowing that I'm going to play against a third of Toughness 4 armies. So I'm skewing kind of my thoughts on what I'm building towards that. And I'm still trying to keep an open mind for everything I might come across, but knowing that maybe a third of my games are going at Space Marines, and that every year I've went, the same person has won the tournament, and he has brought Space Marines, Primera Space Marines, every time. I actually played him last game 2 years ago at the top table, and lost to him playing Primera Space Marines. So there may be a little bit of a chip on my shoulder on how I build this list, but that's my mindset and how I'm going through. So I'm gonna butcher this name. The AJ Hursk 13. You're South Bend, Indiana. What are you playing, man? Like, are you in because you also play Eldar, or are you or do you play a different army? Okay, AJ, good. Thank you. You're saving grace on me. But AJ, do you play 40k, Age of Sigmar? What brings you in? Well, I know there's a little bit of a lag, so I'll talk about the list a little bit. So those 3 support batteries, I wouldn't take more than 3, because you can't at a big tournament know what the terrain's going to look like, and hiding any more than 3 of these support batteries, because they're big. I'll grab one. One sec. So I actually didn't have one right behind me, but they're on like this base. So hiding 3 of those, and they're about that tall, is really hard to do. If you have a lot of buildings, a lot of line of sight blocking terrain, it's possible, but you don't know how much line of sight blocking terrain you're going to have when you go to a tournament. So you kind of got to build knowing that some of the things are in the open. And with one of the best things about this weapon being that it could shoot without line of sight, you want to hide them. Having any more than 3 is kind of a liability because you can't hide them or can't reliably hide them. So, yeah. So if you don't play 40k, but you're interested in coming in, 40k has these life cycles. They go through editions. So we're in 8th edition right now. Kind of like if you're interested or you know about Dungeons and Dragons. There's Dungeons and Dragons is now in its 5th edition. Yeah, it's in 5th edition now. But we're at the very end of the life cycle of 8th edition. We've been in 8th edition for almost over 2 years now. And it'd be a great time to jump into the hobby either at the very end of the edition where there's all these lore dumps if you're really into the lore, the hobby aspect of it, just painting and building models, because all the cool books come out towards the end of an edition. We're in a book series called Psychic Awakening, which is basically chaos have just torn a hole through the center of the universe and they're just messing with everybody. But also from a rules perspective, learning new, it's always good, AJ, to start as a new player in Horus Heresy books. It's a great place to start, but it's great from a new player's perspective starting in a new edition, which they think is going to be announced around June. So in June, everyone will get new rules, and everyone will be learning these new rules at the same time with each other. Again, rumor mill, so don't quote me on it that it's June, but when the new edition hits, which the new edition will come, we're not going to stay on 8th edition forever, but when it does hit, everyone will be learning all new rules at the same time. So you're not a new player. Everyone's new players then. So that's a great time to start in. And another thing I do if you're interested in getting into 40k is absorb as much about it as possible. 40k as a hobby is not great at being the most cost-effective hobby to start. So the worst thing I would say for anybody to do is to jump in, buy a bunch of models, realize they don't like the models, and then either try and get rid of them and have the feel badsies, or try and just push through and keep doing with something they're not happy with. So I love 40k. 40k is awesome to me, and I love getting other people into 40k. But if you're going to do it, I would read the books like you're doing right now. Awesome place to start. I would watch some YouTube videos. Our channel has a YouTube section. We have a YouTube equivalent, and we do 40k lore and competitive and community talk shows every Saturday around 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time every Saturday, where we would talk about an army. So feel free to either send me an email or put a comment on a video, or if you can follow here, we'll track what armies or lore you're interested in, and we can do a video on that lore or those armies for you. It'd be great. But we can get you any information. We'd love to do that for you. And thank you, AJ, for the follow. But yeah, just let me know what information we can get to you to help you grow in this hobby. Anytime. I love getting people into the hobby. You made my day. Yeah, anytime, man. Don't worry about it. Sorry. I'm getting the like wrap it up from the wife, so I only got a couple more minutes. We're gonna finish out this list. Competitive 40k is played usually at a 2,000 point scale, so I got a couple more points to fill out. Heavy supports, we got our support weapons, 111. Oh yeah, Josh saw the two things that get me amped is close games of competitive 40k. Like, not steamroll. I don't care about steamrolling people, or getting steamrolled is never fun. But close games where both people are like shooting mind bullets at each other, that gets me amped. And then getting new people into the hobby, I love doing it. So Warwalkers are a great choice. The downside to Warwalkers is that they can't leave combat and still still shoot. So if I play against a Warwalker, the only thing I need to do is touch it. It's terrible in close combat. It won't kill you in close combat. So anybody comes up and just touches it, completely turns off its guns. Yeah, no problem. I don't currently have a stream schedule other than the Saturday show. So 100% the show is going to be on Saturday, 1 p.m. every Saturday. Don't worry about it. Then for the other 40k content, it's kind of hit and miss, except there's a YouTube video on the YouTube channel every day. But yeah, feel free to turn on the bell. You'll see when I come on. Or there's the you can Gmail. Just send it to the teambaddecisions@gmail.com. Any questions you have, even on off times, and I'll do my best to try and get back with you. So Warwalkers, support weapons, Lynxes, and the Warp Hunters are both Forge World. If you're not familiar with what Forge World is, it's another company that sells resin models that GW owns as their like unique model company. They're beautiful models. They're unique rules that are fun to play with. They're also probably twice as expensive, if not more. So I try to stay away from them, especially for new people. Just that's why. Wraith Lords are good. I would argue a Wraith Lord is better than a Warwalker, even though it's more expensive. It has close combat capabilities, so you don't want to tie it up because it will smash into what it's that's tying it up, and it has the same weapon shooting loadouts as a Warwalker. You can also put flamers on it, which I think is hilarious, to walk up with the underhand flamers and then just go to town on some dudes. That is great to do. But a sneaky trick I try, and what I'll probably build, because I already have these, is Dark Reapers. But instead of 3, I'll go up to... Okay, that's where I added it. I'll go up to 9 in an Exarch. So 2 groups of 10. And I'll keep the Tempest Launcher. So Tempest Launcher, what's great about this is that you don't need line of sight, and it's 2d6 shots, and it's anti-infantry. So I'll say this a lot, like anti-infantry, anti-elite infantry, anti-vehicle. So what I'm seeing when I say that is the strength 4. 40k is based around the poster children is the Space Marine army. There's a ton of different kinds of Space Marines, Chaos Space Marines, but they're all toughness 4. So a strength 4 weapon is made to fight toughness 4 things or toughness 3 things, which is your infantry. When you're getting up to strength 5, that's going to be more of a elite infantry to a like elite infantry killer. Strength 6 is an awkward strength because you're buying too much of a premium to fight infantry, but you're not quite strong enough to hurt light vehicles yet. Space Marine armies, so yes and no. I think Space Marine armies are easy to make good because a Space Marine army starts out where everything around it is decent. It doesn't really have any overt weaknesses, and it doesn't have any overt strengths. So any direction that it skews in are good. And basically you could take, like, okay, let's So the people that are in chat right now, you guys aren't really Eldar players. So I can do this on my own. That's not a big deal. I'll jump into Space Marines real quick and I'll show you some Space Marine stuff. I don't actually need to save this. Let's just do Space Marine luck. It doesn't matter. Any amount of points, 2,000 points. Add a force. Go into our Space Marines. There's not Space Wolves, Space Marine. Adeptus Astartes. Adeptus Mechanicus. Am I missing this? Where are you? Oh, yeah, I did miss it. Space Marines. And we'll go into the Unbound so we can look at all of them at once. And I'll just throw up real quick a typical what I'd see in a competitive setting. They'll have some sort of cheap captains. Because the downside to a Space Marine army is they don't really have anything that's super cheap. Usually, and it's really kind of like irks me to my soul, you'll see a Space Marine army bring a Imperial Guard battery. And it's called a battery because 40k operates on something called command points that allow you to do special things. But since you get more command points by filling out more force organization charts, and the downside, or one of the downsides to the Space Marines is that they don't really have anyone that's super cheap. They can't fill out a lot of these force organization charts easily. But they'll lean on something called the Imperial Guard or the humans that do have very cheap units, and they'll fill out 2 of their 3 battalions, giving them a bunch of command points or a command point battery with 200 of their 2,000 points of just the cheapest humans they could find. No, they don't have grunts. Oh, I punched my mic. If we look at their troops, a scout squad is 55 points, and that's 5 dudes. But that's 5 dudes with a 4-up save, which is the worst save in the Space Marine book. And they are bolt pistols and bolt guns, which aren't great from a Space Marine perspective. You're going to see most of the Space Marine troops are going to be this Intercessor squad, which at its base are 85 points, which compared to the Eldar list I had, my squad was half that cost. And you're going to want 3 of them. Let's put in 4. So you need 3 of them for a typical battalion. So where my troops, or my minimum, was about 200 or 200 points with HQs. So let's put in the cheap Primaris, captain, and a chaplain. So 2 leaders, 3 units of troops is the base army. And they're looking at 400 points, so about twice as many points as what my Space Elves had to do in order to do this. Where they're good, though, is that you can take something that's great in the Space Marine Codex, like, for instance, this Repulsor Executioner, plop 3 of those bad boys in the list, and this thing, when you give it all of its upgrades. Let's look at this bad boy. This bad boy puts out D6 shots, straight 12 shots, D3 shots, 3 shots, D6 shots, D6 shots. That's the same gun. So one of those D6 shots. 2, 6, and 6. It puts out so much on one body, which means it's super effective for buffs. If I'm going to cast this unit gets +1 to hit, it works really well when that +1 to hit is on a unit that's shooting 75,000 times. Where my Eldar can cast a lot of spells, they have a lot of different units, so those spells are going to be more spread out. Another great thing that Space Marines have is their chapters. There's a ton to choose from, and it's 31 flavors of the rainbow. However you want to build your Space Marines, there's a chapter that makes that thing that you want to build good. Where my Space Elves, I have 5 total to choose from, and I have to figure out the chapter and build a good list to that chapter. Space Marines are almost the opposite. You could find what you're good and what you like to play with, and you could make everything else around that good. So that's some of the things that make Space Marines good. Also, base leadership of Space Marines is good. They usually don't have to worry about any leadership issues. They're toughness 4 for all of their infantry, where my Space Elves are toughness 3. The Space Fish people are toughness 3. Space Humans are toughness 3, which is great. It's usually, from a numbers perspective, they take 18% less wounds or have to make 18% less saves from the same kind of weaponry because they're toughness 4. They're extremely well-rounded. You hit the nail right on the head. There's nothing about them that's bad, which makes them very forgiving in a tournament setting, where even if you get exposed, your flank gets exposed, you're not completely done. If I mess up with my Eldar Space Elves army, if my flank gets exposed, if I do something wrong, it could very easily cost me the whole game. And in a tournament, when these games take 2.5 hours, and you only really get 3 games in a whole tournament, sometimes if it's a multiple day tournament, you'll get 4 or 5 games. Losing even 1 game, it could take you out of the running for the whole tournament, which is a very niche. I'm not saying everyone should play tournament play, but some people do play tournament play, and that is a very real circumstance for those people. If you're playing in a casual setting, which is also perfectly fine. A lot of people, I'd say a majority of the people, play in a casual setting. Still being a well-rounded army is very beneficial to you. Some other things that they have is they've got a lot of very interesting niche play like tech pieces. For instance, they have a thing called a drop pod. It allows you to get around the rule of having to have models on the table to begin the game. So a core rule of the game is that you need to have half of your army start on the board, and the other half you could choose to start somewhere else. It could start in reserves, it can start in a teleporter, but a drop pod has this rule that, let's see if I can pull it up. Drop pod assault. During deployment, you can set this model up along with any units inside of it. It could hold 10 units, I believe. 10 infantry, cannot support jumper, terminator, or centurion. So it can't support units that are wearing big, bulky armor, but it could support 10 infantry models. And then in match play, which is tournament play or pointed play, this model and any units embarked upon it are exempt from the tactical reserves match play rule. So your entire army can start off the board in these pods, which means you show up and you say, "You could have turn 1, sir." "Oh, you don't have anything to shoot at? You don't have anything to charge? You don't have anything to do anything? Okay, that's fine. I'm glad you had your turn 1. My turn." And you bring the heat, and you bring everything down, and you guarantee that you could shoot everything you have at them. The drop pod army is considered the worst army right now. Oh, dyslexia. My bad. What is considered the worst army right now? Okay, so I'll get to your answer. 8th edition has been really, really good about bringing the bottom of the pack closer to the top. So there's 4 or 5 armies that I would consider being the top armies right now, but the difference between the top army and the worst army is not that far. A worst army on a good day can beat a good army. But I would say that Tyranids are in a bad spot right now. They have a couple very neat... Tyranids are space bugs. They're like the Zerg from StarCraft. They have some niche benefits, but yeah, Frosty is a great point. The worst army in a good player is better than a great army with a decent player. Yeah, there's a lot of people that'll just go online, they'll net deck what the best army is right now, just because it was the best in the hands of someone who has practiced with it and knows what they're doing. They'll take it to a tournament and they'll be super disappointed. Yeah, 100%. The clubs don't make the golfer. But they'll be disappointed that this army is trash. I spent all this money, put all these models together, and it didn't do what I was trying to. Because you need to play with the army to understand how it reacts in certain situations. And you need to... The game of 40k is a very reactive game. It's a game about dice, so there's still a lot of chance in it, but it's all about mitigating the risk and the chance. And knowing your army and how your army works mitigates that. But back to Tyranids and why I feel they're in a little bit of a hurting spot right now is that they got their codex, or their book of rules came out, and then they got the nerf bat, which happens whenever a new book comes out. New book comes out, a lot of stuff is really cool about the book. A lot of people break a lot of things. Then the nerfs come out, and the FAQs, frequently asked questions, come out, and they never really got revisited after the nerfs happened. So they still have a very viable competitive list, but where other armies and other factions have multiple ways of being competitive and different facets and different ways of being good, and you could play, say you just played only one army, you played Imperial Knights. You could play them in a couple different ways at least and still be good. Playing Tyranids, you can play them in the one way that they're good right now competitively, or you can play them uncompetitively in any other way that you want. But you don't really have an option to play them however you want and still be competitive, in my opinion. So that would be the worst army from a competitive sense. I would say another thing, depending on what you mean, AJ, by worst, there are armies out there right now, like an army called the Death Corps of Krieg, where their models are only available either Special Order or from Forge World. And that army is extremely expensive to play. Where you could get in with a start collecting box for, I don't know, 45, 60 bucks. You could win a start collecting box. You can start playing for pretty cheap. If you wanted to play a Death Corps of Krieg army, the minimum, that like 200 points of 3 troop choices in HQ is going to be multiple hundreds of dollars. And you're probably sinking where someone could sink in to a competitive list, highly tooled, highly tweaked, painted, put together, everything for a couple $100. You're probably pushing an entirely Death Corps of Krieg army is probably pushing a couple $1,000. And that is another thing that I could consider worst, because the barrier to entry is very high. And Lugnag, that break the meta mentality, especially in 8th edition, is the people that win the tournaments. Because everyone, like a very, very good player out there right now, his name's Nick Niavati, I got to meet him once, and I didn't even recognize who he was at Adepticon. But he practices, he plays break the meta lists, and then after he wins with them, his break the meta list becomes the meta list. Because everyone wants to play what's winning. So that he just switches to another break the meta list. He's constantly one-upping himself, breaking his own lists, because he knows whatever he shows up to play is going to be the next best thing. It's kind of it's interesting watching him, kind of like watching LeBron James play basketball. Like, he plays at such a high level, and then he goes back to the drawing board to beat himself because he knows so many people are going to pick up and run with what he's bringing. But yeah, so I've got another 5 minutes in me, guys. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about for the last 5 minutes? I'd like to send another thank you out to both Lugnag and AJ for following us on the stream today. I'll try and put up more of these. If you like this kind of like back and forth talk with a list building or to talk about different units and stuff, I'm always down to do that. So I'll try to do it more often if it's something you guys would like to see. But yeah. I'll also try and get more royalty-free music for the background, because I think this is the 4th time I've heard this little jazz ditty, and it's starting to wear on me a little bit. So I'll get something else in there. All good, AJ, man. So I hope you guys are staying safe, and you know, I'll be on. I will be live probably again around Tuesday around the same time. The only thing I could be 100% sure is the Saturday show is always going to be on 1 p.m. EST. You can always catch our videos on YouTube. Our website is teambaddecisions.com. It has links to our VODs, to the YouTube videos, to a merch store if you're interested. And you could send us an email at teambaddecisions@gmail.com with any questions, and we'll try and cover it in future shows. But you guys were awesome. Thank you. Peace.